The Guild – серия игр, являющаяся смесью таких жанров, как экономический симулятор и ролевая игра. На данный момент самая последняя часть – это The Guild 3. В 2017-м она вышла в раннем доступе в Steam, несмотря на предупреждение разработчиков, что игра сырая и требует тщательной полировки, ее обзоры были в основном отрицательными. Обновления были, с одной стороны, частыми, но с другой стороны не меняли ситуацию. Контента мало, куча багов, топорной анимации и не самая приятная картинка. Спустя год издатель THQ Nordic увеличивает финансирование и меняет команду разработчиков проекта с Golem Labs на Purple Lamp Studio, опасаясь, что игра таки останется в состоянии раннего доступа. Новая студия сразу же занялась улучшением и переработкой продукта, радуя нас и по сей день крупными ежемесячными апдейтами. Игра все еще требует полировки, но лампа идет в нужную сторону. Админы сообщества The Guild по совместительству братишки из Лосоты взяли интервью у гейм-директора, гейм-дизайнера этой студии и продюсера THQ Nordic. Приятного просмотра.
Okay, so I'm Ron. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
I can speak Russian and English only, but here's also my partner, Doneo. You already know him, so he can speak German as well. I told you guys about it. First of all, I want to ask you to introduce yourselves, each of you.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Heinrich, want to start?
Yeah, why not?
Mhm.
My name is Heinrich Meyer. I'm producer for the Guild 3, and some years ago I was part of the development team for Guild 1 and Guild 2 and all of the add-ons.
Hi, my name is Thomas Fritz, also known as Tailit in the Discord and the Steam forums. I'm the game designer on the Guild 3 since Purple Lamp took over development. So I've been working roughly 1.5 years on the Guild 3 now.
Okay, and then to myself, I'm Milo. I'm the game director of the guild on Purple Lamp Game Studio side. So basically, back in the days, I was working closely with Heinrich at the beginning when we took over the project to basically take over the development of the previous developer and try to get it back on track, basically. And I'm supporting Thomas, I think, a bit on the design, and then it's mainly about prioritization, the release schedule, all these kind of things are with me basically in the end.
Okay, thank you for your introductions. So, from what question should we start? Okay, from the first one. So was it hard to manage all the negative reactions after first year of development? Community didn't like a mess this game was, and lots of people still can't see through it.
Yeah, I think it's a question for me as the producer. I have to admit that we had a rough start with early access, and the mood at the community was not really good, especially in the first months of the start of EA. But we mostly managed to get good feedback and good interactions with the people out there, so that we were able to steer the development in the right direction. Yeah, it was a rough start, I have to admit.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like Heinrich was saying, in the end, it was a rough start for them, right? But you were asking as well, right, how it was for us when we took over the development from the guild, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, for us, it was, of course, we knew, we've basically were monitoring or looking at the guild already, by ourselves since a while. And then when discussion started, we of course took a look and checked out, the negative comments, played the game ourselves, and these kind of things. So, I mean, was it hard? I think it was not necessarily hard because we knew, what we get in our hands, basically. But I think, particularly after we started and after the first patches released, that we got actually lots of positive feedback, which in the end, it's very encouraging, of course.
Okay, thank you. Well, about this topic. As you notice, we were asking help from Steam community about questions for this interview particularly. So some guys just asked questions in manner like, will they dare to improve this game or something like that? So yes, sometimes we can see lots of negative feedback, but I think you're on a quite right way to develop it now.
In general, I would say that most of the feedback and even critique of the game we're getting is usually in a very structured and nice way. So even if it's negative feedback we're getting, you can see most people really want the game to succeed and help improve it. This is basically what the early access is for. Of course, with most online community, you will always have like a certain percentage of people who would rather try to focus on the negative and maybe bring like the mood down in general. But I think all in all, so far the Guild 3 community really tries to support us in development and helps and tries to give like critique in a positive and effective way.
So moving on to the next question. General feedback. Is it negative or positive mostly? Or we mean not only hate speech but also reaction on your patch notes?
Yeah, so as I said, in general, I would consider most of the feedback positive, because like even if it's criticism of some systems, it for me is always the way this criticism is transported, basically. Because if it's a whole different thing is if somebody says, hey, I didn't like change XYZ that much, couldn't you do this or that? Or if somebody like starts more or less screaming in the forums and saying, yeah, this is bad and this is shitty and stuff like that. But in general, I would say most of this is positive in my view.
Yes, and also one thing, and this is, I think it's really important, is that right now when you check out the forums and see, how some of the discussions are going, is that usually if somebody is coming with something very unconstructive or something that's mainly hate speech and not really aimed at actually improving the game or giving valuable feedback, that is that actually somebody from the community usually replies, and says like, hey, why do you give feedback like that? It's still in early access and these kind of things, which of course is awesome, for us, because it sees that this community is really interested in actually getting a game that they want to play, and is usually handling the hate speech guys pretty by themselves.
Okay. Yes, I saw some some moments when someone answer for these texts, for these comments. Yes. So okay. The next question. Was it hard to change all the code of game from the first version of it? You often wrote about making this or that part of it more comfortable to work with for artists or other working groups.
Yeah, I mean, in general, you can always say that if you take over code from another team, people you never worked with, it's always a little bit of a challenge, because everybody approaches problems differently, basically, and tries to solve them differently. And especially if you have a game like the Guild, it's just a huge code base that our programmers had to work through and to try to understand how everything works and get the inner workings of the whole system.
Yes, and because of the complexity of overall complexity of the game and all the systems that are tied in each other, so all the different features, let's say economy, simulation, the RPG part, and all these kind of things. It's like Thomas was saying, it's a huge code base and it's very, very interconnected with each other. So there were a few things, like for instance this section system that we reworked. We mentioned it in the patch notes as well. We refactored big parts of the code to make it more stable and also to make it a bit easier, in this case also actually for Thomas, to create new actions in the game and make balancing easier, and actually being able to do, a lot of things that we weren't able to do before.
So, again on this topic, what was the greatest challenge for your team so far working on this project?
Well, I think the greatest challenge so far was obviously the multiplayer, because let's say the multiplayer code, in the end was there was the basics were there basically, but a lot of stuff was missing. Whereas features were added which were not multiplayer ready. We updated that also in our patch notes, always which feature we're currently tackling and making multiplayer ready. But this was obviously a huge amount of work to get it to the level we are currently in.
So it's multiplayer, yes?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as you can see, even now, we have comments like, hey, we have sync issues, and this is all stuff that we need to address, basically. But we're pretty happy, actually, that we got it that far already, that you have the host migration. So if the host is losing, somebody else is taking basically over the host and sharing that correctly, that you're now able to save and load multiplayer games, that you're able to rejoin multiplayer games and these kind of things. So this was really a bunch of work and also complex stuff.
We played multiplayer already, especially from the first version of it, when it was in beta. So yes, we had lots of issues
I can imagine.
on the first versions of it, but now we tested it by ourselves, and we want to say that it works well.
That's
maybe-
really good to hear.
So
This makes us happy.
So we're satisfied of it.
That's good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, moving on. What has been the most argued about game feature internally, or the element of game design that you've revised the most behind the scenes?
So I think the one that has been revised the most times is the action system. There's just a lot of special cases and like different states, characters that interact with each other can be in. So there's a lot of special circumstances that we as developers need to foresee and have a proper way of handling. For example, what happens when you attack somebody who's currently doing something else, or if you try to talk to somebody who's currently doing something else. These are all like situations that the code has to go through and check and then find the right answer to the situation the characters are currently in.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's also a lot of a timing thing where what happens if in theory two players would do the exact same thing with the exact same characters at the exact same time. So this is where things can get like very entangled with each other very quickly.
Mm-hmm. So it's actions.
I would say so, yes.
Actions and interactions between them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sixth question. It's very important one for community. Interiors and of buildings. Previously, it was quite a big part of the atmosphere of the games. It was told before that it's not going to be in the Guild 3, but community wants it back. Can you at least answer what is the reason of this removal? Still, we ourselves hope that they'd be part of a game and not only like 2D style as we can see now.
Yeah, the interior scenes is one of the hottest things in the community from time to time. The world is several times larger than even the largest map in the Guild 2 Renaissance, and therewith we have a lot more buildings and a lot more characters in the world. So if you would have interior scenes for each building, we need subsystems which keep track on the movements there and what the characters do there and all the other stuff. and now multiply it with the sheer number of buildings and characters. So this is more it was a system decision at the beginning, and the plan was to simulate the production in the outside areas of the business building. We will improve that so that people will see their employees work there and hammer on an anvil or other things they need for their products. At the moment, you can see it at the Crude Craftsman's Hut and at the Smithy, and we will improve it for all other buildings as well. So once this is in, the part of the atmosphere from Guild 1 and Guild 2 is back in the game.
I see. So the problem is optimization and so on, right?
Yeah, the decision was after the Guild 2 was released back in the days, a lot of people asked, okay, now we have everything we want, but we want a really, really big, large world. And this was one of the main features we want to have with the Guild 3. But on the other hand, we had to sacrifice other parts of the original idea.
I see.
And now we could have really, really large worlds, but the sacrifice here was the interior scenes. The ones we already have will be improved, but at this point we don't plan to add more.
So moving on, the first goal was to make the Guild 3 better than the Guild 2. Does it mean that all professions, skills, possibilities, etc. from previous game would be added?
Well, in general, I'm of the opinion that bigger does not necessarily mean better. So there is reason for not all the content, all the same content, or that the Guild 2 Renaissance has, that it's not in the Guild 3. Some of them are gameplay-wise, because some things just don't really make sense in the context of the Guild 3 to have them in there. And others just never really 100% worked in the Guild 2 to begin with, without some patches made by the community, for example. And so we're trying to basically get to what the Guild 2 and the Guild 1 was about and compress that to a new game. That doesn't mean that we're not going to add any more businesses or professions. That's still open. But in the end, it will probably be not in the same amount as the Guild 2 Renaissance is, which is a game that's basically already had a few add-ons and years of mod support. So it's at some point not realistic that a normal develop team can, in a few years, in our instance now, make the same amount of content that a whole community of passionate players was able to make through over a few years.
Sorry, mistake.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I would like to add something.
Sorry again.
What happens here? Okay, so things. Okay, I want to add that the Guild 2 Renaissance is a standalone add-on, as already mentioned, and we had around 10 years to develop the Guild 2 Renaissance, and based on an already finished game, the Guild 2 plus add-on. So you cannot compare those games. We already have a lot more content than the Guild 2 had on the release day.
What I said is basically, it's in the end it's also two different games. Of course, it says it's the Guild 3. It has some elements were done differently. There is like we have lots of character actions with the influence system and these kind of things. So of course, it's not just a kind of, hey, let's build on top. It's also something like, hey, how you go on the side, which are the new aspects of it, what makes the Guild 3 interesting, and these kind of things. So that's also very important to consider, when when talking about whether if it's just adding something, a block to something that's already there, which in this case also, like, even in a kind of, let's take it in the game development point of view, as we, of course, we're not using basically the Guild 2 technology and the game code and these kind of things. It's not always kind of just add something, basically.
Okay, and an extra question about it. Will there be a profession of priest? Because some people asked about it.
Thomas.
Yeah. So okay, let's say it like this. We are aware that there are a handful of professions like the priest and also the banker or the money lender are professions that are near and dear to the community. As I said, it's not the amount of professions and businesses that are in the game right now is not necessarily going to be the final one. So we cannot say anything specific yet, but there might be additional businesses and or professions coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We all, in addition, we have to take care about the economy system, how it is at the moment. We cannot just add, let's say, 7 more businesses or so, because we would destroy the economy system how it is at the moment. And Thomas especially would be very frustrated if his economy system breaks down.
Again.
Again.
Yeah.
Give him some rest.
In the end, what we're saying is we're thinking about that there may be, different interactions with the church. So basically that there is, like we already have, right now what we have in the game, that you can donate to the church to get some influence and these kind of things. It's something that for us is interesting. The way the professions work in the Guild 3 is also a bit different, right? As you know, it's you have all the buildings tied to a profession, and the skill tree linked, with the items that you can produce and these kind of things. So we are aware that the church, played an important role back in the days, and of course thinking now how we can make it a bit more interesting also in the Guild 3.
I think the eighth one is kind of similar to other questions that. Okay, so the next question is: what is your goals now regarding new content as brand new professions, mechanics, etc.? Well, not professions, but mechanics.
Yeah. So in general, we want to lean in a little bit more on the whole life simulation aspect of the game, because we think so far it's fallen a little bit short in the Guild 3, and it's also a thing that we feel a lot of the fans of the Guild 2 or which made the people fans of the Guild 2 was basically the life simulation aspect of the game was a big part. And we want to try to get some of that back into the Guild 3 and give it and lean in a little bit more on that concept for the Guild 3 again.
One thing that we're currently also preparing, so for one of the next patches actually, is the sovereigns. So we were working right now on how it's actually working, how you're able to, how you're becoming sovereign. So one thing that we can already say is that it will be interesting because it will influence, it will include the new influence system that we added. So this will be interesting when you're competing for sovereign. And we also added a new power for the sovereign. So this is, for instance, also new content that we are going to give to you guys soon to try and feedback on.
Well, looking for it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, okay, now it's sovereign.
Exactly, because right now the sovereign is a bit boring the way it is in the game, so that's why we're improving it, and soon TM.
Okay, the next question. It's more about, like, some dreams about future. So with all that you've learned on this project, what project would you like to do next?
For me personally, I would be very happy to work on a project that allows me to start with basically a clean slate, and that's not so heavily influenced by decisions already made previously where we didn't really have any influence over.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a special genre or a special kind of game, but just it would be refreshing basically to just start from the bottom up basically.
So something with less if situations, right?
Yes,
yeah,
in the end, every decision that you make on a game when you develop it right has an impact. So it kind of defines, certain things that are going to be important, throughout the whole process of development. And there are things, for instance, also in the Guild 3 that are hard to change at a certain point as well, because there's too much stuff is built based on it. It's way too big to change it afterwards, and that's why, of course, it would be the perfect thing is like if you build something completely new from scratch, you can basically give it your touch from the very beginning, and that's, of course, it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. And what about others? What's your dream project for the future?
Me? I'm with the guild since 20 years, and I think you can imagine what I would love to do after the Guild 3.
Yeah, kinda.
So, yeah, besides that, there are other games I would love to do, but I think you know what I want to do.
Okay. So, kinda the Guild 4 confirmed?
We have, I myself have a lot of subtitles for a possible Guild 4 project. It's not set in stone, and I'm not sure if the THQ Nordic will make Guild 4, but if so, and I had the chance to participate in the project, then I have a lot of ideas. Like all other players and fans of the Guild series have. I'm sure of it.
Okay, the next question, I think. What about animations and other aesthetic stuff as models, customization, etc.? When are you planning to seriously work on it? Guys?
Yep, okay. Yes, sorry.
Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. As you probably have noticed, we're regularly adding smaller updates, graphical updates. Like, for example, we just had an overhaul of some of the terrain textures and also street textures. And we also continued, we already reduced or increased performance for a lot of the models and houses and everything. And it will be during the whole development process always come like in small trickles of when basically the art is done. As soon as it's done to a certain point where we can add it into the game, our plan is to add it into the game, so there's not going to be probably not going to be like one big patch where all of a sudden the whole game looks different. It will be like small incremental changes over time like we did until now.
Well, yes, I saw that. I think on the present update, there were new lanterns, I think. Yes?
Yes, the
update,
lights have been changed, I think, in this one.
Exactly, some lights, we changed some shaders as well. So basically there is also characters, basically new shaders, so they look a bit better. And we're also trying right now to do a bit of, so we can show metal a bit better in the game and these kind of things. Like Thomas was saying, we're doing, smaller things incrementally. So next version will again, have some nice, sweet little things inside.
Good to hear it. So, next question. Will there be deeper seed trading system?
I'm guessing you're referring to the far trade system, basically with the
Yes.
far distance citizens. So at this point right now, we don't have any plans to change how the system works. So Right, how it works right now is you basically have to send one of your family members to one of those cities to basically establish a trade connection, and from that point on, you're going to be able to use those far trade posts to trade with the different cities, and this can include better prices for things you need, or that they buy your products for higher prices. But will be things where you have to regularly check up on and see if the prices are still better than at your local market, for example. But this is more or less the way the whole far trade system is going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Like Thomas said, right now that we are not planning to do any bigger changes or something related to sea trading.
Okay, I should say that in the Guild 2 there was one easy strategy when you're just on your first row order your character to go to a far trade place, buy their materials and return to your home to sell it, and you could just grind lots of money on your first day, and this strategy had and has lots of not fair situations, especially in multiplayer. So I'm warning you about it, to not to have this one in the Guild 3 again.
Yeah, so this is basically one of the reasons, because I'm sure, as you've already realized, there were a few patches where we did not properly set up the price progressions, where prices jumped too quickly from minimum price to maximum price, and people were able to exploit this basically. I think we have it right now under quite good control, how the prices progress over time depending on how much there is, and this also works pretty well with our current far trade system, and that's also one reason why we don't want to massively change that anymore, because it's a very, very delicate balance basically that can be easily tipped over
and crash the economic system again.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't like it, I remember. So, next question. The Guild 2 gave us very amusing Russian voice acting. Don't know about other versions, but in Russia it was like a big part of aesthetic, for sure. So we know that you are going to implement other translations, but will the Guild 3 have other language voice packs? Also, will there be support for Cyrillic? Because you can't write the name of your character in Russian now, and in the Guild 2 it was also a problem.
Yeah, we will have support for Cyrillic or Cyrillic, and of course Russian language as well. But so far we have no plans to add Russian voice text. So you will have Russian texts, but English voice text at the moment.
Okay, well, one of voice actors in Russia was the same guy who acted as Geralt from the Witcher series.
Nice.
Nice.
So, and Russian version of Witcher voices is one of the best around the world. So, just like a fact. Okay, moving on. The Guild 3 has much brighter picture than in previous parts. Some people think that it made a feeling of medieval age more. And what was behind this change? What was your idea of changing this colors.
Yeah, so it's very true. The Guild 3 has very different aesthetics from the Guild 2. In some points, the Guild 3 is more colorful, more brighter. In other points, the Guild 2 is more colorful, more brighter. In general, the whole aesthetic was already established when we as Purple Lamps took over the production.
Yes,
And-
but but there's one thing, that as you can remember when, so 1.5 years ago, for instance, the game, at least particularly the Guild, Guild 3, was looking very grayish, brownish, kind of, because there were lots of, tone mappers attached, basically, that tried to desaturate, the overall look of the game. So, and as you can remember, I don't remember which patch it was, but it was a while ago already. We changed it, in order to have a bit more color variety and to get a bit more color out of it, actually. And I think in comparison, actually, with Guild 2, it's still, a bit more realistic. Let's put it like this.
Yeah.
And less bloom and these kind of things. So this is something that we don't have in the Guild 3 at all, actually. So I think a lot changed, on that front.
I think it was just before you added an island, somewhere in these versions. But
Exactly.
Yes, I saw it.
Yeah, there is one famous screenshot actually on Steam, in the Steam forum. I don't know whether you know it. It's I think it's one of the most featured ones actually. If you go to community artwork, where somebody I think already tried basically with Photoshop to kind of tone up the colors a bit on the Guild. It got lots of likes, and that's why we also said like, hey, they're right. We need to do something on that front, and that's why we did it. And I think it looks now actually way more attractive than a few months ago.
Actually, I haven't seen it. But okay, thank you for this fact.
Yeah, we can show. Let's check it out.
About community, I should say that for the Guild 3 you have a bit quite a mess in the illustration section, so check it out sometime to clear something. Okay, someone wanted to say something, I think.
I just wanted to say it's also not like that in medieval times, like that the grass wasn't green or the sky wasn't blue. So
Yeah.
I always find it a little interesting when people say like it's too colorful. It's not medievally. It's more like the representation that we get from different like TV shows, films, games of what medieval is supposed to look like is not necessarily of what it was like.
Yes, like
If you know what I mean.
Yes, like why in Western movie you don't have yellow colors?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Will AI be smarter and more challenging later? We mean if it would make reasonable decisions, not only have advantages from the start.
Yeah, so we're still in the progress of tweaking the AI. There's lots of different values that we can change to adjust the AI behavior, and we're still trying to give them a little bit more complex behavior and also some more longer term strategic planning. But this is an ongoing process, and obviously it takes a lot of time because like you have to change the values and then you have to like play for some time to see if it's actually behaving as you would expect it to behave. And so this is something we always tweak a little bit. Try to change it from patch to patch, see if we get what the feedback is we're getting, and then try to keep adjusting, because with the schedule we're releasing the patches in, it's basically not really possible to do a complete overhaul of the whole AI to make it work perfectly from one patch to another, because it would just take too much time to test it all the changes.
Okay.
But so, in all, yes, we're still working on improving the AI.
Okay, good to know. So, I think the last question. Oh, it was quick. Combat system. Combat system in previous parts and also in present one isn't that exciting. What's your plans about it? Maybe adding some skills that you can use in combat to take a high ground, like in the Guild 2, or when you dueling someone, you can dodge bullets or say something to irritate your opponent.
The Guild series is mainly an economy and life simulation game, and so a mix of both of those genres, and neither of those genres are really heavily focused on combat. This is probably also a reason why the combat in the Guild games itself, in general, is not it's not really action oriented, and I think it would also be difficult to as a player to manage, because you would need to start micromanaging your combat, especially, for example, when you would be playing as a rogue. You more or less have constantly and some small skirmishes ongoing because of your thieves. They get caught while pickpocketing or something like that.
Exactly, and it would also basically take also a bit, away the simulation aspect of where you say like, hey, you manage your thugs, you manage your mercenaries, you equip them correctly, and then they fight basically for themselves. So I think that's pretty important to also keep it a bit that way, because the Guild already offers lots of different elements, right? It's the economy aspect, the politics, the social relationships, all these kind of things, and it's when you grow your family, it will get more and more intense, of course, over time. And if you also would add now something on the combat where you also need to micromanage, I think this would be just too much, for the game.
Mm-hmm. But if you do it only for your main characters, not for everyone.
You mean for your family, for instance?
Yes.
But it can be pretty big, your family.
Well, yes. So someone asked if there would be a war between families, but yes, I don't want to ask it.
Well, I mean, I had a few times already where basically a lot of other family member mercenaries were waiting in front of my house, so I would call it a war almost.
Yes.
They definitely didn't come for tea. Let's put it like this.
We had some situations in our multiplayer games, but in the Guild 2, when someone from our family was judged in the small village, I just, hired 40 or 50 mercenaries and sent them to wait for the judge to come out.
Yeah, so what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that's it.
Oh, right on time, I'd say.
So I should say thank you for coming to our home, to our server Ustarin. So,
You're welcome.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
You are welcome too.
Yeah, thanks again for the invitation, and of course, we hope you enjoy the next updates that are coming. And you, of course, never let us down in aspects of feedback. So you can always, let us know what you like, what you don't like. So because this is really what keeps the game going, is the constant input of the community right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'm sure that we'll like your future updates, because we like present update and of course previous ones. So why not to like future ones?
That's good to hear.
So yes, and what I wanted to say, if you need some help, especially with the Russian community, feel free to contact us. And also, yes, if Daniel wants to add something, he can go ahead.
Yo, hi guys. I just wanted to say thank you for the interview and ja, ich kann das sogar auf Deutsch machen, weil ich Deutsch kann, mehr oder weniger. Also, damit ihr euch mehr oder weniger wie zu Hause fühlt. Also, das war so eine große Ehre für uns, dass ihr ja euch bei uns so haben. Also, vielen Dank, vielen Dank.
Ja,
Vielen Dank, dass wir hier sein durften. Vielen Dank für die
Dankeschön,
Einladung.
Ja, das war sehr schön und das Video wird auch großartig.
super.
Bin sehr gespannt.
Freuen uns schon drauf.
Was quite German.
Okay, guys, then that's it.
Okay, thank you guys. Have
Okay.
a nice evening.
Thank you very much
Mhm.
again for the invitation. Have a nice evening and yeah,
Thank you.
hear you
too.
basically.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.